because that actually was inspired a little bit by the situation from work that started a few days ago, but it's still happening. Mainly, there is one person that ignores repeated questions about something, and I've noticed that the more they ignore this question and I try to bring it back, the more official the way I speak becomes. And it's not like it's not like with the words. Like I actually start to care about punctuation. I actually start to care about, like, putting the dot at the end of the sentence, making paragraphs, starting with a big letter and other stuff like that. And I started to think about it. Why? Why? Is it because it sounds more serious? So I want to inflict on them this belief that it's more serious? Or is it because I am getting increasingly angry and I try to contain that anger, and because it's taking over with each single word, I'm trying to, like, overcompensate in the other word. Like I might be paranoid. Oh yeah, if you want to be taken seriously, you'll probably speak like that. I think in some fields, if you can back up what you say with the actual knowledge and facts, then the way you say it, it will not be as important, but it also depends. But I think that from when it comes to like this, starting to speak like a manager or something, let's call it this way, I think this stems from two things. So one is trying to just inflict the feeling of seriousness to the person that we're speaking with, but the other, what I truly believe is also the major factor when it comes to that, is that you are paranoid. You are paranoid that you will be so angry that you will let slip something that could potentially be called very rude or impolite, or even bring some consequences to you, right? And in general, we want to like oftentimes normal people try to avoid that, because like the consequences might be like various, right? So they try to be polite, or there's could also be the third path. Now that I think about it, is the how do I put it? Trying to avoid escalation of the potential conflict by being very, very polite. I think those are like three major factors, and they very, very slightly move, like when it comes to the first place, depending on the context of the situation. Like that's how I think it is. There might be also a situation where some people think that if they are in the direct conflict situation, if they will speak in a more how do I phrase it? That if they put it out in a more eloquent way, they will not only be treated seriously, but they will come from the position of power, being like, I'm above you. Like, the way you speak, the way we conduct ourselves oftentimes put us in some sort of like a social ladder that is not really related to our economical class, but rather our educational class. And of course, in some of the countries, those two are strictly connected. In some social groups, they're strictly connected. But the way we speak and the way we conduct ourselves basically place us, categorize us into like, if we are a royalty or peasants, maybe this way, that's gonna be very like oversimplified, right? So the moment we start to speak very official, and we try to be very careful about our language, we instantly might think that we're positioning ourselves above the person that we're speaking about. I think the way you say it is very, very important. Yeah, but here is the funny thing. Like, if you are at work, right, and you had this one conversation that was been dragging for a very, very long time, and let's say it's in an email, right? And you've already sent like notes, attachments, and everything, right? So you know that this person should have this data, but they claim that they don't have it, right? So you all might start to be like, I don't know, for visibility I included, as per my last email, as I've mentioned in my last email, as I've mentioned in the previous emails in this thread, as it was already mentioned throughout this and this day, like you increasingly show that it was actually like shown. Then then it doesn't even really matter like the tone of the voice, right? Like it's obvious that someone fucked up, and everyone will read it as a passive aggression at some point, right? Doesn't really happen to me, but I'd imagine I'd get pissed off after 3 times and go to the person's manager with receipts. I'm actually thinking about that because this is basically what I had with my company, right? When I asked them about relocation, they started to throw shit between themselves, and it was mostly Copilot responding to Copilot, hanging on a wrong keywords, and it was basically impossible to communicate with those people. What is even more impossible is that they do not respond on Teams, they only respond via email. I mean, their Copilot does. So the conversation never got resolved when it comes to like my personal company, because it's impossible to talk with AI at this point, right? So yeah, this happens quite often when it comes to the project. They simply just ignore some facts, talk over some facts, and other stuff like that. Punctuation. We already know that punctuation is a lethal. Like, if they don't usually type very properly and they start to put dots at the end of the sentences, you just know that they are pissed. Like, there's some non-verbal message in the way we form the sentences and the seriousness of the sentence that instantly make us know that this is going bad. But even in a situation that would warrant polite language and very like eloquent language, we would always understand if there would be like kind regards. We just know that it means kind regards / die. You just know it. You just read the email. You see the polite language. There's nothing that would say that someone did something wrong, and you're like, oh, this person hates the other person. Like, you just know that they are already planned their murder 5 times in their head.